Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. We're going to uncover the hidden recipe behind the everyday metal that is, quite literally, holding our modern world together. Whether you're sitting in a skyscraper, driving a car, or just, using a simple household tool, you are relying on steel. But how well do we actually know this stuff? Especially if you're a total beginner to how steel is made, don't worry, I've got you covered. Today, we're going to break down the absolute fundamentals of the steelmaking process, focusing specifically on the core ingredients that make it all happen. We'll trace that journey from raw, dusty rock to the incredibly strong metal we rely on every single day.
So, you might look at a simple carbon steel bolt, like the kind you'd grab at any local hardware store and think, oh, it's just pure iron, right? It seems like one solid, uniform piece of metal. But actually, scratch that. If we look closer, that bolt is a carefully crafted chemical mixture. If you zoomed in to a microscopic level, you wouldn't just see iron atoms hanging out by themselves. You'd find a whole community of different elements interacting with each other to give that bolt its specific strength and durability.
To make this super easy to wrap your head around, think about going out to a restaurant. Just like a hearty main course always comes with basic side dishes, or how ordering a drink at a bar might automatically get you a bowl of peanuts, iron naturally brings along specific elements that shape its final form. Iron is our main course, for sure, but it never arrives at the table completely alone. It is always accompanied by a standard set of structural side dishes that fundamentally change how the iron behaves.
The crucial takeaway here is that everyday steel contains 5 specific elements acting as the fundamental seasonings for our iron main course. We're talking about carbon, silicon, manganese, phosphorus, and sulfur. In the material science world, these are famously known as the 5 major elements of steel. Without these 5 elements mixed in, well, you simply wouldn't have the standard carbon steel that builds our bridges and our buildings. They're absolutely essential to the metal's DNA.
Now, you might be wondering, where do these 5 seasonings actually come from? They don't just magically appear in the metal out of thin air, right? They have to be introduced during the manufacturing process. So where exactly does the carbon, or the silicon, or the sulfur start out before it ends up locked inside your hardware? Let's find out.
The steelmaking kitchen, inside the blast furnace.
All right, if you've never seen a blast furnace, imagine a towering, gigantic oven, sometimes dozens of stories high, operating at unbelievably extreme temperatures. Into this massive furnace, we throw 2 absolutely critical main ingredients. And if you're trying to figure out how steel is made, this is the #1 concept to grasp. First, we have iron ore. Think of iron ore as a heavy rock dug straight out of the earth that holds our base metal, iron, trapped inside. Second, we have coke, and no, not the soda. Industrial coke is a specially baked, highly concentrated carbon-rich coal. Coke is super important because it has 2 massive jobs. It acts as the extreme fuel designed to melt that rock down, and it also acts as a vital ingredient itself. These 2 materials, the rock and the fuel, are where the magic begins.
The blast furnace recipe itself is basically a simple 3-step process. Step 1, you continuously feed layers of that iron ore and coke into the top of the giant oven. Step 2, you blast it from the bottom with insanely hot air. And step 3, you just watch it all melt together into a glowing liquid metal. It's this continuous, roaring, chaotic process of turning solid, earthy raw materials into a massive flowing river of liquid potential. Let's talk about that heat for a second, because it's wild. 1,200 degrees Celsius? That incredibly hot air being pumped into the furnace acts exactly like a stove's fire in our kitchen metaphor. It ensures that the solid rock of the iron ore and the solid fuel of the coke completely liquefy. But it does way more than just melt them. It forces them to interact. Under this extreme heat, the chemical components of the rock and the fuel break down and blend completely together.
The resulting metallic soup that flows right out of the bottom of the furnace is called pig iron. Pig iron is the raw, unrefined initial liquid iron. And this right here is exactly where our main course of iron and its 5 side dishes first unite. The pig iron isn't pure iron. It's literally a liquid mixture of the iron we extracted from the rock, fully blended with those 5 major elemental seasonings we just talked about. It is the baseline canvas for all steel.
Tracing the origins. Who brought what? Think of this liquid pig iron like a neighborhood potluck dinner. We know it's on the table, but who brought what dish? Well, iron ore is the heavy hitter here. It brings the bulk of the ingredients, naturally supplying the iron, as well as the silicon, phosphorus, and sulfur straight out of the ground. The coke, our high-energy fuel, is the sole provider of our carbon, And finally, manganese is a little different. It's generally added in separately as a specific additive just to get the chemistry absolutely perfect. Looking at it all together, it becomes incredibly clear that while iron ore is the primary provider of our chemical mix, the coke and purposeful additives are absolutely essential to complete the recipe. Without the coke providing that crucial carbon, you wouldn't have steel at all. You just have really soft, brittle iron. Every single source plays a totally irreplaceable role in creating the final alloy.
Ultimately, I love this quote from our source material. The 5 major elements are the basic side dishes created during the blast furnace process. It perfectly summarizes the reality of steelmaking. Just like a chef can't magically remove the salt from a baked cake once it's out of the oven, these elements are intrinsically baked into the metal right from the very start of the blast furnace process. You don't just sprinkle these basic 5 elements on at the end, they're born together in the fiery belly of the blast furnace, completely linked to the iron itself.
So, the next time you hold a standard steel bolt, remember, you're not just holding a piece of metal, you are holding a specific, heat-baked recipe of 6 distinct elements, which leaves us with a pretty fascinating final thought. If this basic pig iron recipe gives us foundational carbon steel, how do modern metallurgical engineers tweak and manipulate these exact same seasonings, removing a little carbon here, adding a bit more manganese there, to build everything from flexible skyscraper beams to high-tech spaceships? That incredible science of tweaking the recipe is what really pushes our modern world forward. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and keep questioning how the world around you is built.